Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. A Winnipeg man has been charged with first-degree murder for the death of a 20-year-old Indigenous woman. Police say the two were known to each other. This homicide comes after the body of an Indigenous woman was found in an apartment building in Winnipeg just last week. Indigenous leadership are calling for support in keeping Indigenous women safe from gender-based violence. Parental has more.
20-year-old Michaela Gerard-Roussin has been identified as the victim of a homicide in Steinbach, Manitoba. At a young age, Roussin attended Rossbrook House, a non-profit drop-in center in Winnipeg. She later became a staff member and graduated from Rising Sun High School. Rossbrook House took to social media to share stories. A post reads, "She was part of our powwow and programs for many years. We will always remember her as outgoing, smiling, and singing at our Christmas parties." Roussin was last seen on Thursday. By Saturday, RCMP responded to a call about a homicide at a home in Steinbach, south of Winnipeg. Upon arrival, the suspect, 20-year-old Josh Benoit, had fled in his vehicle. Further investigations led officers to believe Roussin was with him. When he was located, Benoit was arrested before his car caught on fire. RCMP believe he started the fire while being pulled over. After the fire was extinguished, the vehicle was searched, but Roussin's body was later found on a remote ATV trail. Benoit had been charged with first-degree murder. Garrison Sati, Grand Chief for Manitoba, Kuitanawi, Okmaknak, says more work needs to be done to protect women from gender-based violence. He's calling on allies to help advocate for calls to justice implemented in the MMIW National Inquiry. In a statement, he says it is a basic human right to live without fear of violence, threats, and abuse. The ongoing legacy of our women being tragically taken through acts of violence is an unacceptable product of colonialism that impacts all of us. Benoit has been remanded into custody. Major crimes and forensic identification services continue to investigate. Roussin's family is asking for privacy while a sacred fire is held in her honor. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
To the west coast now, where the Union of BC Indian Chiefs are calling for a public inquiry after Chris Amyot, a 42-year-old Ojibway father, died after an incident with Vancouver police. His death is under investigation by BC's police oversight body. UBCIC want a systemic change in policing of Indigenous people. According to a witness, Amyot was in distress after being sprayed with mace last week. VPD say they responded to calls of a man acting erratically. After interaction with police, he was shot multiple times with a beanbag gun. Amyot was taken into custody but went into medical distress and died at the scene. In a press release, the Union of BC Indian Chiefs say they want a public inquiry and changes in VPD's approach to policing Indigenous peoples. 48-year-old Saskatoon mother who disappeared from that city with her son in July and was later found in Oregon will have a bail hearing Friday on charges of parental abduction and mischief. A publication ban was imposed at her first court appearance in Saskatoon yesterday to prevent the release of information that could identify her child. The Crown is also opposed to the woman's release, and outside court, the woman's supporters said they stand by her. The chief of Okanee First Nation, Richard Stonechild, says he was saddened to hear about the treatment the woman is receiving.
Walk with your head held high. You did nothing wrong. We're here for you. We love you. We support you. And we're going to be here for you going forward.
With the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation just around the corner, plans are underway for a major event in Ottawa on September 30th. On Tuesday morning, a press conference was held in the nation's capital to talk about the event and why it's necessary. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
This year, our focus is remembering the children who were taken from their families and subjected to cruel abuse in an effort to suppress the culture and traditions of Indigenous peoples.
That's National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation Executive Director Stephanie Scott talking about the upcoming TRC Day. The Trudeau government is investing $4 million in 278 community projects as part of National Truth and Reconciliation Week. Part of this funding will also go to the Ottawa event and a TRC Education Week for Canadian students in grades 1 through 12. At the press conference, Ottawa Centre Liberal MP Yasser Naqvi spoke about what he sees as his role in truth and reconciliation.
I'm an immigrant to this country, and therefore I'm a settler. And it is my responsibility to continue to learn about our tragic past and participate in not only learning but teaching my 2 young children as well.
And Saskatchewan residential school survivor Eugene Arcand talked about what survivors expect of the non-Indigenous population.
We want you to know who we are. Know our names, know our numbers. And we don't want your pity. Don't think for a second that we do what we do because we want people to feel sorry for us. Those days are done. We want real reality. We want to share these truths with adults, but more importantly with young people, because that's who's going to change this country.
Nunavut survivor Lavinia Brown spoke about how she managed to retain her language in spite of attending residential school.
I kept my language from our grandparents. Our grandparents, our ancestors were our strong tools to survive our culture. Yes, I speak my language.
The September 30th Ottawa event takes place right here on LeBreton Flats and will be broadcast live on APTN. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, a flag honoring residential school survivors was raised on Monday on Parliament Hill. The raising was attended by members of Parliament, survivors, and the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation. The survivors' flag will fly near the West Block and Visitor Welcome Centre until 2024. After that, a decision will be made to find its permanent home. The flag honors the 150,000 children who were forced to attend residential school and the impacts this had on their families and communities.
Residential schools are a shameful part of our history. That is the truth. That's the truth we must continue to confront, to share, and to be open about. And that's the truth this survivor's flag is going to remind us of every day here on Parliament Hill.
Time to step aside for a quick break. Still to come, a nursing shortage for a First Nation in Northern Ontario. Welcome back. A First Nation in Northern Ontario is in a healthcare crisis due to a severe nursing shortage. The situation has been going on for over a month, and the community says the situation is near breaking point. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
The Kashechewan First Nation nursing station normally operates with 9 primary care nurses, but since late July they have been down to 3. And Health Director Jonathan Solomon says this means emergency services only.
I also have to acknowledge that there's a shortage of nurses across the province or across the country. I acknowledge that. But at the same time, like the press release says, we're isolated, we're remote. We cannot jump into a vehicle and go to another health center. So that's a situation we are in my community of here in Kashechewan.
Solomon says the situation is further complicated by the fact Kashechewan is located on the shores of James Bay and is a fly-in only community for most of the year.
The walk-ins that come in, that used to come in every day, or appointments, they don't even take appointments. Blood work, people with diabetes, or prenatals. We got women here that haven't had their prenatal appointments for quite some time now.
Indigenous Services Canada recently announced increases in both recruitment and retention allowances for nurses working in communities it serves. Solomon says this is a good start, but there has to be more. Canadian Nurses Association President Sylvain Brosseau agrees. He says governments need to create a healthy and safe work environment for nurses and step up the recruitment of Indigenous nurses.
Promote the nursing profession even among Indigenous high school students. Also increase Indigenous student recruitment and retention through nursing student program, bursary, mentoring, and also about academic and experiential learning opportunity for them. For instance, we should include inclusion of Indigenous way of knowing and being into the nursing academic program.
Brosseau says now is the time to tackle the nursing shortage across the country.
We are in a crisis, and this is something, as I said, since 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and we cannot keep it like that because it's going to be I don't want to be negative. It's going to be a collective burnout. I mean, it doesn't make sense that that nurses always work overtime all the time.
In an emailed statement to APTN, ISC says it is committed to providing healthcare services to remote First Nations and is working closely with the community to address staffing shortages. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
We now know when Nunavut's Baffinland iron ore mine will receive a decision on their application to increase their output by nearly 2 tons. Nunavut's Impact Reviews Board says they will make that decision the week of September 19th. The Baffinland iron ore mine is located between Pond Inlet and Arctic Bay on the northern tip of Ellesmere Island. Both the mine and Northern Affairs Minister Dan Vandel were urging the review board to deliver a decision before the end of August. The mine says it will terminate nearly 1,100 employees if they don't receive this increase, and the mine is responsible for 23% of Nunavut's annual gross domestic product. The Indigenous Journalists Association, known until recently as the Native American Journalists Association, hosted its annual conference in Phoenix, Arizona late last week. But one of the world's most well-known media outlets, the New York Times, wasn't allowed in. For more, Melissa spoke earlier with Indigenous Journalists Association President Francine Compton.
Francine, great to see you. So why didn't the New York Times attend this year's media conference?
Great question. Nice to see you too, Melissa. We had a discussion with the New York Times before the conference. They wanted to come, set up a booth, and we just told them that we weren't ready to have them there just yet. Our board members, we had a discussion about it, and we didn't feel it was the right time for them to have a big presence, a booth at the trade show with their logo prominently displayed. Especially after an article that they wrote a couple years ago about Canada's Inuit. and a statement we made on that.
You guys had, like NAJA had some dialogue with the New York Times about that coverage. Just give us a little bit of a rundown on that and what their response was to the concerns that you guys have brought up with them.
You know, they stood by their editorial process and their article and their reporter. And we understand that not everyone's ready to make an apology and go down that road toward reconciliation just yet, especially a big media outlet with no Indigenous journalists in their newsroom. Right. So we left it at that. It wasn't resolved after we met with their editorial leaders. But we really wanted to see if our instincts were right about the New York Times, their coverage historically. And we actually had an audit done. We did a media spotlight report, and our audit found a lot of problematic coverage from the New York Times, unfortunately. But we do hope that we can move forward with them one day. And, despite them not having a presence at the last conference, there's always hope for an apology and some reconciliation.
And they're asking for refunds on their membership, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, it's nothing personal from our end, and the individuals they asked for the refund for the conference registration fees and the $55 memberships, which was very disappointing. So again, that's a relationship that really needs some repair, resetting, and some reestablishment.
Well, there's no shortage of relationships like that on both sides of the border here in Canada and the United States. So from the perspective of NAJA, how can media outlets do better by serving Indigenous people, communities, issues? What's the ask?
Hire Indigenous journalists and invest in our organization. We need programs, educational programs that can help our communities and our people become journalists and work for outlets like APTN one day.
Francine, thank you so much for your time today. It sounds like it was a great conference. Hope lots was accomplished there, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Kachimi-gwech. Thank you, Melissa, and thanks to all the APTN viewers.
APTN reached out to the New York Times for comment. They wrote back to us stating, quote, "The New York Times has had ongoing discussions with NAJA leadership regarding concerns they raised with some of our reporting in 2019. After NAJA expressed that they were not comfortable with the Times being at the 2022 conference, we respected their wishes and did not attend. We welcome continued dialogue with NAJA and seek future participation at their events." The Times says it's also committed to thorough and detailed reporting on the lives of Indigenous peoples throughout the Americas. For more on that audit the Indigenous Journalists Association did on the New York Times coverage of Indigenous peoples and issues, visit the National Observer online. A full report is there. Time now for one more quick break. Still to come, nurturing the mind with language and culture. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And this was submitted by Holly Moore during a recent holiday, showing sunset on beautiful Sombrio Beach along Vancouver Island on the traditional territory of the Diditat and the Pachdat First Nations. Keep those photos coming by sending all your photos via email to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 28 with showers in Halifax, 30 in Fredericton. 15 with rain in Kuujjuaq, rain, and 8 in Nain. 21 with showers in Montreal, rain, and 22 in Chibougamau. 18 with showers for Sault Ste. Marie, 22 and rain in North Bay. Rain and 23 for Thunder Bay, showers and 20 in Sioux Lookout. Sun's out in God's Lake with a high of 18, 29 in the Pas. Sunny and 30 for Winnipeg, 31 under the sun in Dauphin. 33 for Regina, 34 and sunny in Saskatoon. 31 in Meadow Lake, 29 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 26 in Fort McMurray, sunny and 29 in Grand Prairie. 34 for Lethbridge, 31 in Edmonton. 35 in Kamloops, sunny and 26 in Victoria. 25 under the sun in Prince George, showers and 15 in Dease Lake. 18 with rain in Old Crow, sunny and 19 in Whitehorse. Showers and 18 in Yellowknife, cloudy and 17 for Wrigley. 8 in Sax Harbor with rain, cloudy and 12 in Paulatuck. 9 with showers in Chesterfield, 11 for Baker Lake and Arviette. 4 in Arctic Bay, plus 1 in Resolute. A family of Anishinaabe language keepers have just created a new learning environment. The Ojibways from Wikwemikong unceded territory are proud to share their culture and language, and they've opened a new home for it. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
Over 100 friends and family members came to celebrate. There was speeches, dancing, and music. With an official snip of the ribbon by great aunt Liz Ozwamik de Bossige, Ozwamik Gitagani is open for business.
It felt really good to have my 100-year-old great aunt here today to celebrate with us, and because she grew up in this house, and I remember spending time in this house as well and sleeping here as a child, so it had a lot of memories having the language house here.
It's a place to come and stay, to be immersed in language and culture. The newly renovated house and freshly built cabins are the dream of Beverly Nakogijik after inheriting the property and money from her uncle.
I used that money to start, and then the powwow and catering, big caterings I did. I saved my money, and then I pay all my stuff there, my workers. And then I had the big, another big catering coming up, and then that's where I just save all my money,
Why is that so important to you?
Because that's the way I felt, and then I feel like Anishinaabe Mwin, it's only like to be taught, maybe over here, and just to talk the native language.
Ontario Regional Chief Glenn Hare was on hand for the opening. He says more immersion programs like this are needed, and it's time the federal government step up in the name of reconciliation.
They need to provide funding, and we shouldn't have to beg for it either. It's there, and they're asking, but I think they should give. This is one of many, I hope, because we love our language.
Nakogijik comes from a long line of language teachers, over 30 sisters, brothers, and cousins. Shirley Williams is a residential school survivor and an aunt who spent her lifetime teaching language and culture. She credits her parents and elders for her motivation. She says nurturing the minds of the people with language and culture is important.
I know what we went through. in history. And I wanted to help those who have lost the language, those who want to know the language. I wanted to help them. And I would not teach the way they taught me. I would teach differently.
Ozwamik is open to anyone across Turtle Island that is interested in an Anishinaabe immersion. You can reach out to them on Facebook. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Wikwemikong.
What an absolutely fabulous endeavor. Great work, Beverly. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For news anytime, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and download the APTN News app. Do stick around for an encore presentation of Face to Face. Our guest tonight is Cindy Blackstock. That's up next. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.